But that's not all, folks. Today, we are also joined by a complete anomaly, a politician actually fighting to release the Epstein files and end pointless wars. I once described him as not only a congressman, but a dish. We are very excited to speak to him while he's still alive. Give it up for Khanna, everybody.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much, first of all, for being here. I know that you have, the tech feudalists or whatever they're called are ringing you left and right, trying to push agendas in. So thank you for squeezing us into your time. And you have a beautiful plant over your right shoulder.
Thank you for your dish comment. Has become folklore in my family. When you ask, what is Khanna? What kind of dish? So it's become now like a running joke in my family.
All right. Well, when we all retire and we open like a small Punjabi Hindu restaurant, then we can decide what goes on the menu.
You didn't say, don't say chicken tikka masala. That's
no,
non-answer.
No. Butter chicken.
You gotta pick a dish other than chicken tikka masala.
Yeah, like I got like a lamb rogan josh or something like that.
There you go. Okay, so now I know you've been to an Indian restaurant.
What is this guy? What is this guy talking to?
That's pretty good.
I grew up in East Village. I'm in the heart of India.
So, my favorite thing is halva puri, which I'm sure Akash knows. But
halva puri?
Yes.
No, I've never had halva puri. Halwa, like the sweet thing?
Yeah, the sweet thing. You got alus, halva.
I never had that weird shit in my life, dude.
Oh, we're having an Indian off here. I like it.
How about you eat that?
Eat some jalebi, dog. What are you doing?
What is the thing that I said you look like? A gulab jamun?
Gulab jamun. Yeah. I look like a gulab jamun.
Those are fighting words.
No, it was a compliment. It was a nice thing to say. It was on his wedding. I said you look like a gulab jamun with teeth. And
you said that about young me, which is accurate.
That's true. That is true. That is true. He was a little kid. He was adorable. He was pudgy. Beautiful teeth.
Yeah.
Anyway, dude, let's get to the important stuff. You're about to, show how many of our congressmen are pedophiles. How does that feel?
Well, look, it's a pretty simple thing, and to me, it's whose side are you on? Are you going to be on the side of the rich and powerful, basically getting their own justice, or are you going to be on the side of people who were participating in this being exposed? And I don't think it's a partisan issue. We should just release these files. People say, well, why didn't you do this earlier? And I didn't do it in the first Trump administration or Biden administration. But the reality is you now have had the Attorney General tell the whole country that there's a list. And you had the president say that he's going to release it. So it's now become bigger than the Epstein files. It's an issue of trust. Like, people feel that the rich and powerful have their thumb on the scale. They're screwing folks. Life is hard. This has now become an issue of trust.
What do you think about the list? Do you think it exists? Do you think there are powerful politicians and businessmen on that list? What are your specific thoughts?
Yes, I think it exists. I mean, I think, look, I don't know if there's a specific entries of here are the people who went to Epstein's Island, but I think that there is evidence suggesting that there are a lot of powerful and rich people who were on these plane rides, who frequented some of these parties. And, the standard at the DOJ is you don't release information unless someone is charged. And I get that. Like, I get that you don't want to destroy people's lives. But this has become way too big. You have accusations now of intelligence agencies involved, of national security involved. And so the president, like he campaigned, should just say, in this case, we're going to release everything. We're going to protect the victims, but we're going to release everything so the American people can decide.
Can you explain what the amendment is, essentially? Because you're proposing an amendment, right?
Yeah.
And what would that make Congress do exactly?
So basically, if the amendment passes, it would require Pam Bondi to release the list and any evidence, any files within 30 days.
But before that, just proposing the amendment would make each congressman go up in front of Congress and say whether they're pro-releasing it or against releasing it, right?
Absolutely right. But
that to me is the most interesting thing, because then you get to see who's in the pocket, if there is a pocket to be inside of.
Totally agree. But the dirty secret in Congress is it's not how you vote. It's what we're allowed to vote on.
What does that mean?
Meaning that the speaker is going to try to probably stop this from coming to a vote. So I introduce it. Today's Monday. I introduced the amendment. And on Monday night, the Rules Committee of Congress meets. It's like the high priests, right? There are about 9 people on this committee, and they get to decide whether Congress even gets to vote on my amendment or not.
Can you tell the good people right now that are watching, hopefully millions, who those 9 people are that get to decide whether or not we get to see if congressmen and congresswomen are supportive of releasing the Epstein file? Who are those 9 people?
Let me get the exact names. I'll just look at.
Do it. Look it up. Take your time.
Look it up right now. The Rules Committee is basically appointed by the speaker, but here are the.
Take your time. There's no rush here. I just want to know who is accountable, who is responsible. Because it seems like a pretty benevolent thing to do, right? We'd like to know this information.
The chairperson of the Rules Committee is Virginia Fox from North Carolina.
Okay.
And you've got Jim McGovern, who's the ranking member. He's on the Democratic side.
Okay.
And you've got Representative Michelle Fischbach from Minnesota, Representative Ralph Norman from South Carolina, Representative Chip Roy. I hope Chip votes for this. And Chip's usually for transparency. He's a pretty independent-minded guy. He's from Texas. You've got Aaron Hoshin from Indiana, Nicholas Langworthy from New York, Austin Scott from Georgia, Morgan Griffith from Virginia, Brian Jack from Georgia, Joe Neguse, Teresa Lager, Mary Gay.
So these are the people. Is there anybody else, or is that it?
No.
Okay, so these are the people that decide if we get to know which congresswomen and men would like the Epstein file to be released. These are the people that get to decide, because it can't even go to the vote if they don't decide that it's worthy to be presented in front of Congress, right?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And most people don't even know this. I mean, they just think, okay, congressman gets up and you file an amendment, you file a bill, people should be able to vote on it. But there's this committee first that the speaker appoints. It's always 9 people from the majority party and 4 people from the minority party. So the majority has it stacked in their favor, and they vote on whether your amendment, whether your bill can even get a vote in the Congress. And a lot of times they allow Democratic bills to get a vote. But in this case, I have my doubts. So I'm going to on the floor to make the speech. I'm talking to some of them individually. And I'm hoping they'll just say
there's unanimous support in the United States of America for releasing all the information around the Epstein files. I can't fathom. I mean, you brought up an interesting point, which is like, if you're not charging somebody with a crime, releasing their information, there might be some sort of, I don't know if it's a breach in your civil rights. I'm not exactly sure what that would be. Like, if somebody's associated with something, but there isn't an allegation against them, what could that do to them and their life?
Could they argue this sets a dangerous legal precedent and try to hide behind that?
Yeah, that is, I think, what they will argue. They'll say, look, there are hundreds and thousands of people who may have been caught up in an investigation. They may have gotten money from Jeffrey Epstein. They may have run into Jeffrey Epstein at a fundraiser. They may have had an email or a phone call or something fairly innocent. He may have funded a university program. And so now, by putting all this out there, you're potentially harming their reputation. As a general matter, I agree with DOJ policy that you should not, if you're just investigating one individual, leak stuff before you charge them, because the government then would be way too powerful if they could just do that for folks before they charge them. But in this case, where you have got the entire country outraged at a government that may be protecting the rich and the powerful, where you have got national security implications, where people are asking, whose side are you on? I think the president should say, I am making an exception because of all the stakes. We're going to release all the information. We're going to exempt the personal information of the victims. And I trust the American people to decide that we're just going to get it out there. And I think people are fair enough. They're not going to be like, okay, you showed up to some fundraiser with Jeffrey Epstein and that means you're a pedophile. I think people are capable of taking this information and making a reasonable conclusion.
Do you have confidence that your bill will actually come up for a vote if you have the president telling everyone, hey, this is old news, let's move past it and focus on other things?
No, I don't, because I think that, if it was that easy, we wouldn't need to do podcasts or so. That
Yeah.
It's the sad reality is when it comes to reforming things, DC just doesn't allow votes. Ban PAC money. Oh, we don't need to vote on that. Ban super. We don't need to vote on that. Massey and my bill, right? Like Massey's a great Republican, independent-minded. We do the war powers resolution saying, you know what, we don't need to be spending billions of dollars bombing Iran, having more troops in Iran. And by the way, come to Congress before then. Well, let's just not vote on Khanna and Massey's bill on war powers. The game in D.C. is not that they vote things down.
It's they don't even vote at all.
Wow.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that either. I think so many Americans were just like ignorant to the actual system. We think we understand it because we learned it in elementary school, but we don't really understand what it takes for a bill to get there. And then why is a person like you, like I was doing some research on you, you've never taken any PAC money, but why is a person like you impervious to the effects of these super PACs? Like a Bernie, for example, is also impervious when there are all these other politicians that seem absolutely petrified of pissing off the super PACs.
Well, I'll just give you a candid answer. Look, I represent a district of Silicon Valley, and so I have a lot of people who are more affluent there, and they can give individual contributions, and it's easier to raise money. Bernie is very principled, but he was a national figure. And so when you're a national figure, you get a lot of people who are willing to give you $10, $15. But if you're in a district that is not affluent, and, like you probably didn't recognize the names of any of the 13 members of Congress I said, and no one knows who you are, then it's very difficult to raise money in this system without the PACs and without the lobbyists. So I don't have some holier than thou attitude. It's not like Ro Khanna, don't take PAC money, I don't take super PAC money, because I can. The problem is the system. Now, how do you fix the system? Ban super PACs. Summer Lee and I have a bill to do that. It's, by the way, constitutional. Even under Citizens United. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but think about this. Elon Musk, right? He can spend $250 million on a super PAC, but he's limited to only giving $7,000 to a candidate. So just have the same limits on super PACs as you have for candidates, and that would ban super PACs. And then you should ban all PACs and lobbyists from giving money. And you should allow, I've said that we should have this thing called citizen dollars, your democracy dollars. Everyone gets $100 that they can spend on election campaigns. So every voter is a donor. But you need some broad campaign finance so it's a fair system.
And who are the politicians that currently stand in the way of executing those ideas?
That's not a list of 13 names. We can go.
I know you're going to have to just name all of Congress, but I think it's important that Americans understand who the people are that are in the way of the things that we want. Because I think right now we just go, it's government, it's politicians, and there's this blanket statement, and then there's a few of you that sprout up and you seem like these rogue figures. And if you don't have a lot of support and backing and a social media presence, it's very easy to make you guys radioactive. We saw it happen with Bernie. It's definitely happened with Thomas Massey. It's very easy, and I imagine a lot of that money comes in through those super PACs, right? So I think that kind of transparency is important so that when politicians vote against the will of the people, we are aware of it and we can vote them out.
No, totally agree. So as a start, there are about 10 of us who don't take any PAC money or any lobbyist money. That people should be asking their members of Congress to join that group of no PACs and no lobbyists. But to get this vote on ending super PACs, again, it comes to this rules committee. Are they going to allow a vote on the amendment to end super PACs? And they aren't.
Yeah,
and by
so
the
what's
way,
it realistically going to take to get that through Congress? Is it going to take a president getting elected who starts making it a big deal, or what? Is there a way?
The reason I supported Bernie Sanders is because he was actually going to fight this stuff. I mean, that's why was a co-chair of his campaign, because he would have gotten on and he would have gone from the Oval Office or whatever, and he'd be like, let me tell you, here are the people on the Rules Committee. Here's why we're not getting a vote. And I'm going to actually push this thing through to get a ban on super PACs or get a ban on money. But you're absolutely right. It's going to take a president. And the reason it's going to take a president is otherwise people campaign and then they don't pay attention to the details. So every Democrat will say, okay, we want to ban super PACs. And let's say we get the majority. Then are we actually going to be putting a bill to ban super PACs? Last time we did, it was called H.R. 1 when Biden was president. The House passed it. And then the Senate couldn't get it passed because of the quote-unquote filibuster. That was Manchin, Sinema, a few other people who didn't want to pass it. But you need a president basically putting sunlight on all this and calling out people by name who are standing in the way of these bills getting passed.
And then there's the same pressure that essentially the super PACs are applying. When you have a president that has that much sunlight, as you said, and then you see kind of Trump do it all the time. If somebody's going against him, he's basically blatant. He's like, yeah, we're going to primary you guys. He's putting like the fear of God in these people, right? But that's essentially what the super PACs are doing, right? So if we don't like it when he does it, then we shouldn't like it when the super PACs are doing it.
Yeah, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's okay.
And we also don't even know who like runs the super PACs. I mean, there's this like veil of like obscurity. Like I have no clue who what would you call them? Like the managers of the super PACs? Who are these people that are in these like unelected positions that have so much power in our democracy?
Yeah, what are their interests? I don't even know.
Yeah,
they don't want you to know.
They don't want you to know. Exactly. It's like old school people. It's Elon is like he comes from money, but now he has like real money, right? And he wants everybody to know, and he's flexing, and he wants to shape the world in his vision. Old money, they don't want you to know who the fuck they are. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know if Rothschilds exists anymore. You know what I mean? Like I never met one. I was told Jay Electronica was dating one at one time, and that could be totally fake.
Anderson Cooper's at Vanderbilt. His last name is Cooper.
Switch his name.
You know what I mean? I don't get it.
So I think that like I think it's important that Americans understand the people with the controlling interests in these super PACs that have this unbelievable amount of power and sway in our democracy. I mean, that are really kind of like stripping our influence as voters.
They really are. And probably more at the level of Congress and Senate than even the presidency. Because the presidency, everyone kind of tunes in. And yeah, the money matters and the awful super PACs matter. And by the way, it happened on both sides. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, Kamala Harris raised $1.5 billion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. This idea that Kamala's campaign was all small donations is a complete bullshit. I mean, she spent, but no amount of money would get her elected. Like it could be $1 trillion. Nothing would ever get her elected. There's not even possible.
If the election was again today with Trump's betrayal and some of this Epstein stuff and the war, don't think she would lose?
Yeah, she's that bad.
No way.
She's that bad. She's that bad and I'll tell you why, because I've thought a lot about this.
Come on.
Because I got recently we got like a lot of shit over in the last couple days, right? Because we're on the pod and we're like, all these things that Trump are doing are none of the things that he promised during the campaign. Like he said he was going to showcase, what happened in the Epstein situation. He campaigned hard on it. Bongino and Cash campaigned. His son campaigned hard on it. They really campaigned hard on this thing. Ending the foreign wars was a big part of what he was saying. That hasn't happened. It seems like we're still funding him. It seems like Israel does whatever the hell they want to do. We're still just turning Gaza into rubble. Kids are fucking dying. So it's like Ukraine, it seems like we're going to send more money over there. Shrinking the budget, not expanding it by a few $1 trillion. So like all these issues that I think were important to us, right, that we wanted to see executed, and he was making those promises, and all of a sudden he seems to be flip-flopping on those promises. So naturally we're going to criticize him. We're like, well, this isn't what we voted for, right?
I thought that was great. You're calling balls and strikes.
Yeah, because you're smart.
You're talking about your dad, about the New York Times, and how he had the scrunched up New York Times every day.
Yeah. But so I guess what I was saying, what I was saying to people is like, if I wanted to vote for somebody to not release the Epstein files, to continue the foreign wars, and to expand the budget, I would have voted for Kamala. The reason I didn't do that is because I didn't want that. So my issue with Trump right now is he is doing what Kamala would have done.
But look, I think the Democratic
so it's
Party.
like, I mean, you can't tell me that Kamala is going to release the
I
Epstein
think
files.
the only
'Cause
difference,
Biden did it.
the only difference is green card holders aren't getting deported, which is a big deal.
Well, I'm not talking, but I didn't bring up immigration.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Most of the big things that we had a problem with would be status quo, whether Kamala won or Trump won, it would be the exact same. Tariffs, we don't actually know the economic impact yet. And then green card holders, which is an issue, but the big stuff that bothered us as a country is still going to be an issue if Kamala wins.
Yeah, I just think, yeah. So it's like he's basically running as like an institutional old guard Democrat on these issues. He's not doing the thing.
There's a new wing of the Democratic Party that wants to get rid of the old guard. It's the Bernie wing. And we've said no dumb wars. And that's just not about Iran. I mean, Bernie and I led to stop the war in Yemen. We were vocally opposed to the war in Iraq in 2003. There's a wing of the party that says get rid of these super PACs. We shouldn't have super PAC money. Not we should go kiss up to billionaires and celebrities and raise the most super PAC money. There's a wing of the party that is out there trying to get Medicare for all and health care for everyone, and that wants to reduce the deficits. I mean, I came out with a plan to reduce $12 billion of deficits. But I think the only way the Democratic Party gets credibility is to call out the old guard and to say, you made a lot of mistakes, and we need a new party.
Hey, welcome to the show. Mark decided to show up today. I feel so disrespectful.
Sorry, my apologies. Hey. I'm on Indian Standard Time. Please forgive me. Sorry about that.
You'd be an hour later if you were running.
But yeah, not to distract, because I think that the point you're making is fantastic.
What keeps those New Democrats? What keeps them from making a real push? Because in our opinion, we're idiots, but it seems like it somehow gets muddled with identity politics, and then that kind of takes over the discourse, and then the New Democrats that can make real change, we aren't as captivated by. Is that what you think, or is there something we're missing?
I think it's something much deeper. I mean, there is huge financial interest against the policies that some of us are pushing. I get booed when I vote against $1 trillion defense budget. That's 56% of our defense budget. If you pull up one of the clips, you'll see on the Armed Services Committee, it's like 67-1. And everyone is like, Khanna, you're going to vote for it. And then when I vote no, boo.
Wow.
So the point is you're taking on the defense contractors when you're saying we don't want more wars in the Middle East. You're taking on the Pentagon when you're saying you don't want $1 trillion of defense budget. When you say, okay, I want Medicare for all, you're taking on the PBMs. You're taking on the health insurance companies. You're taking on the hospitals. When you say, okay, I want to release the Epstein files, and I don't care which way that's going to go. Why are more Democrats not speaking out about it? Well, they're donors who probably want those files to be released. And so what game do the donors play? They don't say, oh, Ro Khanna is wrong. They just say, he's an unserious guy. He's going down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. That's not statesmanlike. We're above it. We look the part of a politician. And you know what people say? Yeah, you look the part of politicians who've been helping out the rich and powerful and have corrupted government while people's lives are getting screwed.
The thing about the conspiracy is there's no question that I'm sure the internet has made the Epstein thing bigger than maybe what it actually is. But where it already is once convicted pedophile. We already know that happened. Sweetheart deal from the government. And then Ghislaine is locked up for 20 years for procuring underage girls for him. I think they said there's over 1,000 victims. So this is not conspiracy. Like, that to me is enough to get a little look under the hood of who else was in his circle, right? Like, if you know a guy was already convicted of being a pedophile, I don't know why Bill Gates is showing up to his house. I don't know why the former Israeli prime minister is showing up to his house. I don't know why Clinton's flying on a plane with him. Like, I imagine you vet the people you talk to. I mean, you obviously didn't vet us, but I imagine most people that you talk to, you vet them. So I think there is some curiosity, like why some of these incredibly powerful and wealthy people would just look past the fact that he was a convicted pedophile.
Well, you just said three things that most politicians aren't going to say. They're not going to want to say, well, why did Bill Clinton show up, or why did Bill Gates show up? Because they're going to think, well, who am I offending? Who may not support me? And that's why our politics are in this mess. And that's why you don't have more people on the Democratic side screaming right now to release these files. But my point is, if we just get our credibility back, if we stop listening to the big moneyed interests, the donor interests, if we're actually a party against war again, if we're a party that stands for the working class and for the guy getting screwed, then maybe we start to win back the country. Because that's what Trump ran on, that we were getting into these dumb wars, people's jobs were going offshore, the government was taken over by too many corrupt interests, that he was going to clean it up. Because he hasn't delivered doesn't mean Democrats can just say, well, let's just go back to how things were. No, people were pissed off.
What is your advice for Democrats? Like, when you hear, like, I'm a lifelong Democrat, right? I felt very disillusioned by the fact that, like, I don't think we had a fair chance to actually pick a candidate for president in the past 3 elections. Like, I didn't feel like there was a fair primary process at all.
You're right.
And I was really, like, do you think that's a fair assessment?
It's not only a fair assessment, it's a true assessment.
Yeah.
There was no primary process in 2024. Bernie in 2020, I mean, I was the co-chair of his campaign after he won Nevada. All the prediction markets said 70% he's going to be the nominee. Then what happened? Buttigieg drops out suddenly 2 days later, even though he's doing well, endorses Biden. Klobuchar suddenly drops out, endorses Biden. Beto drops out, endorses Biden. Like, when does this happen? It's like you're in a track and field race. You got 10 people. One guy's a little bit ahead, and then every other person on the field just endorses the guy ahead so that he wins, and the guy coming second doesn't happen. It's like, never in sports, you'd never allow this. And yet that's what happens. And that's how they beat Bernie. So no, that was not
Why do you think they did that?
Well, they were afraid of what Bernie was standing for. Bernie was talking about taking on big insurance companies, taking on the pharmacy benefit managers, taking on the defense contractors, taking on Wall Street from buying up single-family homes. He was actually going to fight to end super PACs. He would have not just said, "Oh yeah, I'm for a livable wage." He would have called out senators saying, "You know what? That senator is not for raising the wage," and voting against it.
But what do you think motivated the other people that were running to just drop out and support and endorse Biden?
They get promised a cabinet position, right? Like, they get promised a piece of the pie. They're like, okay, you're not going to run this time, but you run next time. Don't let me put words in your mouth. What do you think?
Yeah, look, they're good people, but they say, look, you can run in the future. We're gonna make you committee chair. We're gonna make you in the cabinet. We're gonna make sure this is good for your career. And then they appeal to, well, Bernie Sanders couldn't win. Do you really want Donald Trump to be president? And
well, I think what Al is asking, and maybe you answered it already, and he's not. We had Pete on the pod. We really loved him. We thought he was awesome. You named him as one of the guys who dropped out. Do you feel like he's a little bit compromised having dropped out, or no? I think that's what he was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think he should have dropped out and endorsed Biden. I don't think that was a fair process. I think you should have just allowed the process to play out. And in my view, there were a lot of people who voted for Bernie who were upset about it. But then it's not just that. You've seen this bombing in Gaza going on with Netanyahu. You know, I voted against giving the extra funding to Netanyahu. It's one of the reasons that some of the interest groups have targeted me, because I think that October 7th was horrific and Israel had a right to defend themselves. But after 3 months, they had destroyed most of the Hamas battalions. It's been 2 years later.
Yeah,
absolutely.
5,000 dead.
Now, that was really brilliant what you did, is evading the Pete answer and then taking us to something that we cannot argue. That was good. That was slick. Indian respect. Myself, very good.
But I did I not answer, Pete? I think
It's not a yes or no. I'm gonna be honest.
What I was saying though is that more people in the Biden administration, others should have called out what was going on in Gaza. And I figured with Pete was not. That he dropped out, I disagreed with it, but I was getting back to Pete, is that he and others should have been calling out this unconditional money going to Netanyahu.
Absolutely.
I just find kind of funny that, like, the last few days we've been lectured by, a lot of, staunch liberals who pretended that the person they voted for wasn't dead for 4 years. Like, they pretended Biden wasn't senile for 4 years, and we're getting lectured for criticizing the person that I voted for. Like, I think
I think they're pretending they had a really viable, awesome candidate that we all should have voted for, and not just acknowledging.
Lecturing you. I mean, I don't get it, because they think we
platformed him. We talked to him.
Not even that. It's just they're like, you should have known better. This guy's a career con man. He just always lies. You should have known. And it's like,
no, Dom, that's why the Democrats lost. It'd be like, look, I represent Silicon Valley. It's like, let's say there's the latest version of the iPhone, and people are like, you know what? This iPhone really isn't good. We're going to go buy some other phone. And a bunch of people at Apple sitting around saying, you know what? They're really stupid. They should really like the iPhone. Guys, we got to tell them why they should like the iPhone, as opposed to saying, you know what? This iPhone really sucked. Maybe we got to look at in the mirror and change our party. It's not, the Democratic Party is not entitled, Andrew, to your or Kash or anyone's vote. It's not like, oh, okay, just because your dad read the New York Times, you better vote for the Democrats for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Earn your vote. And the reality is, we didn't earn your vote last time. We were in these overseas wars. We were taking big PAC money. We weren't talking about people's anger at the system with inflation. We didn't have a clear economic vision. People didn't feel us. And so, okay, they voted. And Gaza was going on, and we didn't even allow a Palestinian American to speak at the DNC. And so, we could keep having more of the same. We keep putting up these status quo folks, and we can keep losing, or we can realize that people are angry in this country at both parties, and we got to take on the establishment.
I haven't figured out if this is a good thing or bad, and I want to get your opinion on it. So I feel like Republicans, even if they disagree, they all fall in line. If Trump says, hey, I want to do this, they fall in line. With Dems, there's fractured. You say old guard, new guard, and you guys disagree quite a bit. Do you think that's a good thing for the party or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. I think the Republicans disagreed a lot in 2016. They had this guy, Donald Trump, who basically went on the stage. Jeb Bush was supposed to be president, and he said, Jeb, you can't even call the Iraq War a mistake. And he transformed that party. He insulted Mitch McConnell. He insulted Jeb Bush. He said all these people don't know what they're talking about. They got us into these wars. They're talking about cutting Social Security. No one liked him in the party. But he stuck to his guns. I think the Democrats, sometimes we're too polite. Yeah. We're not willing to call out our leadership. I got in so much trouble because I said Chuck Schumer was making a mistake by not allowing a war powers resolution vote on the Iran deal. They're like, how can you criticize the Senate majority leader of your own party? I think what people want is for folks to just call balls and strikes, to be blunt.
We love that.
Now, dude, I'm tired of the cult of politics. Like, I'm not some fucking Democrat cult member, Republican cult member. Like, we're supposed to be free Americans that can make up decisions on our own, call balls and strikes, as you say, and then hold the people in power accountable. When people fail us on the promises they make, we should criticize them. Like, what is the alternative? We just vote and then agree with every single thing that person does. I loved Obama. I voted for Obama. I didn't vote for fucking drone strikes of a wedding. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you wait to the honeymoon or something, like target it, like
wait till they've been married 5 years. Exactly. Do them a favor.
Wait for the anniversary.
Wait for February 13th.
So it's like, you should hold the elected officials accountable. And we live in this like weird time where any measure to hold them accountable comes with immediate criticism. Your experience as a politician, or I guess we experience it as, for whatever people thrown in this, political mess. But there has to be a version, I think, also where as Democrats, like, this is a democracy. You want votes. You don't have enough. You lost last time, right? You want to win this time? If you see people that seem to have swayed over to Trump that are now disillusioned with Trump, you have the opportunity to build a coalition with those people. And you don't build a coalition by just going, hey, fucking idiot, why would you, stupid fucking, that's not how you build.
Totally agree with you. I think we've got to listen to people. And I agree with you on this point. Like, we can't cancel people. We need to have free exchange. We got to respect people, but it's got to be much more than that. The Democratic lesson is like, okay, let's not make people put pronouns on their emails. Fine, but it's much deeper than that. the problem in the country is you've got a Democratic Party that was too beholden to the interest groups, to the defense contractors, to the ideology of overseas wars, to not pushing for real reform. And if we run as a status quo party and like, you know what,
Yes.
yeah, America is already great. Yeah, of course we're great. But you know what? Half this country has a declining standard of living. They don't think their kids are going to do well.
You're making a great point, and I think that the identity of the Democratic voter and the Democratic Party are quite separate. And I think the Democratic Party is a little bit split. Obviously, you have the Bernie side, which it seems that you're a part of, and then you have like the old guard side as well. But I think the Democratic voter doesn't believe that his party is tied to these billion-dollar corporation and special interest groups. I think that they believe in their heart, like I believe my entire life as a Democrat. I was like, I'm here for progress and making sure people's lives are easier and better, and I want to help as many people as possible. And once I think Democrats start realizing that that's actually not the priority of the party, that there are military contracts that need to get paid, that there are pharmaceutical companies that need to get paid, there are insurance companies that need to get paid, and those places are going to strip your ability to implement that progress that you want so bad. The second they start realizing that, I think they probably lean more towards a Bernie or more towards a you or guys that actually have that at their heart or their identity. But there is a major chasm. Like they think that like the Republicans are bought, but not the Democrats. And it's like, they're bought too.
There's a major chasm, and there are people who want to silence that chasm. Oh, you got to, how can you be talking about the divisions in your own party when we got Donald Trump? Just focus on Donald Trump. And what I'm saying is people are tired about the focus on Donald Trump. Do you think there's a single thing I can say to any American about Donald Trump that's going to change their mind about what they think about Donald Trump?
That's a great point.
The guy's been on the, there's not a single thing I can say to my own family about Donald Trump.
We had this exact thing. It's like there was when we had Trump on, people were like, why didn't you ask him about Epstein? I was like, so he could give the same answer that he's given 100 times about being with Epstein? Like, do you think that if we asked him about Epstein, that he'd be like, yeah, I used to fuck kids with him? Like, you think he's just going to open up because he's hanging out with it? It's going to be the same answer every single time. Right. So, yeah.
And so, look, obviously, I oppose very strongly what Akash is saying, where he's deporting people without due process, and we stand up to that. But you know what we also have to do as a party is say, we hear, why did the guy get elected twice? It's because people are totally livid at the government.
Yeah. I think
real quick, sorry to interrupt. And a very important thing, I think, for both parties to understand, and I think you're seeing this happen a lot with like the Democrats, is your compass is not very wide for the things you're used to, right? Like, I don't need to try pizza in that many different places. I know pizza. I'm from New York, right? But a wild food in Singapore, I'm absolutely going to be open to and I'm going to try. And I think what happens with like institutional Republicans or Democrats, we're very rigid in what we'll accept for them because we don't expect much. The outsider that's presenting these ideas that are wild will indulge in because we need some form of change. And I think that's like why a Mamdani is so popular right now in New York. It's like, I know the institutional Democrats, the Cuomos, are not going to do anything different, and my life isn't going to change at all. So I have I have rigidity with them. But with this complete outsider, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's an opportunity that things can change. I think that's probably what a lot of us thought with the Epstein files with Trump. We're like, yeah, maybe we'll get some justice for 1,000 underage girls who've been victimized. That'd be really fucking nice because they're campaigning on it. And then when he goes, we're not going to see it, we have every right to be frustrated by that.
I think people would be shocked at how similar the thought process that leads someone to vote for Donald Trump is to the thought process that leads someone to vote for Zoran Mamdani.
No,
the thought process is almost identical, I would bet. And one thing that frustrates me as someone who probably leans liberal but would love to lean more is there's one party that you would think really preaches empathy and understanding people, and it's the Democrats. But when it comes to voting for Trump, there is not even an attempt to understand what makes over 50 or over half the country, whatever the exact percent is, vote for that guy. They're not all idiots and enablers and whatever other awful adjective you want to throw at
Just some of us.
just some. Some are for sure. There's a percentage that are. Look, I'm not saying if you vote for Trump, you're racist, but if you're racist, you're probably not voting for the Democrats.
Yeah, there's plenty of racists. There's plenty of anti-Semitic.
But
Exactly.
there's an understanding of, okay, something made a lot of other people vote for it.
Exactly.
What was it?
Yeah.
They're not all bad people. You can't just do that and feel better about yourself and expect to improve your party or, more importantly, the country. And I think that's getting
A lot
lost
of
in
them
all
are
of
great
this.
Americans. I mean, they voted for him partly because their jobs were shipped offshore. Look, they see a district like mine, $14 trillion in Silicon Valley. And then
1,000%.
Johnstown, Ohio, or Lorain, Ohio. They said, look, there are no factories. Our kids are not going to have a good shot. And then these politicians are sending billions of our dollars and getting into these overseas wars. And this guy is saying, I'm going to stop these wars. This guy's going to saying, I'm going to bring back manufacturing. This guy understands that I haven't had a fair shot in life. And, Rose family, they just got here. Yeah, my parents are middle class, but metaphorically, a lot of the immigrant communities, they're doing really well. What about you? You built the steel. You built this country. You fought in the world wars. If we don't understand that sentiment and understand that there's a righteous anger that a lot of Trump voters have, we're never going to start to win them back. But the point is not just, okay, now let's go talk to them and say, you're not, we want to listen. The point is, what are we going to do? How are we going to actually change things? And what I think what the test of leadership on both parties is to channel the anger, but then to put something forward that is actually going to solve people's problems, that is actually going to be solution oriented. I call it economic patriotism, that we should be having 1,000 trade schools. We should have investments in new factories and across this country, a Marshall Plan for America. We should stop putting trillions of dollars in overseas wars and start investing in this country. But whatever it is, I think if you start out with, we were great and Trump voters are just wrong, we're going to keep losing.
Yeah, I like that idea of investment in America, and I think that's very enticing to a lot of voters that just really feel partyless right now. And they're struggling. And I think when you're struggling, I think when your life is pretty good, just calling someone else a bad guy works because you fear like your life could get worse. When you already feel like your life is worse, you're just going towards hope. Whatever has more hope works. If you go, that guy's a bad guy, he's going to make your life worse. You're like, I already can't afford to eat and I already can't afford rent. How much worse can this get? That guy's telling me he's going to make 200,000 new, rent-freeze units in New York City. I like that guy. That sounds really good. Who knows if he can do it, but maybe there's a chance. And I think that's why a lot of the Democratic socialists are like really resonating. I see that popping up all over the country. It's not just in New York City. I can see that becoming incredibly popular, and especially in the way that it's kind of like rebuking the traditional old guard Democrats, which I think a lot of us don't really, I feel like we kind of just don't really trust them right now.
Yeah. And
I totally agree. And, look, the first thing is just to say that the system isn't working. Because if you're one of those folks who can't afford rent, who can't afford to buy a house, right? That was the American dream. You don't know if you're going to get a good job. And then you're like, well, let's just keep throwing people out. Because why should I vote for the same thing? That obviously works. The American people have been doing this since, I'd say, 2004. 9 out of the 10 last election cycles, they've just thrown the other side out because their life isn't improving. And I think there's an opportunity not just to, mimic Donald Trump or to mimic Mamdani. You can have your own ideas. You can have fresh ideas, but you got to start by saying the system is bad. People are getting screwed. Here's what we're going to do differently. And then, let's have a lot of new debate and new voices about where we need to go.
Yeah. You had a tweet that went viral. I don't want to misrepresent you, but it was, you polled people about, were Dems more upset about or attacking Mamdani or attacking Trump's big beautiful bill? And more people voted that Dems attacked Mamdani more. I hope I'm not butchering it. What was your motivation for the tweet, and why do you think we got those results?
Well, because 1 week after Mamdani won, all you were hearing in the media is, is this the end of the Democratic Party? Is this some existential crisis with the Democratic Party because Mamdani has not condemned unequivocally globalized the Intifada. Well, look, I condemn globalized the Intifada, but the point is that really that's what you got out of the Mamdani election. Not that the guy was out there talking about why the price of halal went from
$8 to $10.
He would talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what we took out of that campaign. And then instead of talking about the stuff that Trump was going to do to take away health care and child care from working class families, you're attacking Mamdani as the problem of the Democratic Party. And the headlines were, Democratic Party has existential crisis. The 33-year-old kid getting elected because he did social media videos talking about why people's lives suck is an existential crisis for the party. I mean, come on. And that's, I think, the frustration people felt. And then, then you get then I got attacked by some of the people in the establishment. Well, that's not true. So senator spent 5 hours on the House floor, and they would spend more time talking about the Trump bill. That wasn't the point. The point is, what did it feel like to folks? And what it feels like to folks is that anytime you have a new voice, anytime you have someone questioning the status quo, the whole party gets uneasy and they come down at him. I mean, the guy's going to be mayor. And you still got these billionaires out there plotting about like how you keep Andrew Cuomo back or how do you get Adams back. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, why is Cuomo not stepping down? Like, who the fuck wants Cuomo to be mayor?
I have no idea. I mean, it's like they don't know when it's time. I mean, he's not going to win. Adams is not going to win. Mamdani's going to win. He still does not have the endorsement of every New York Democratic leader, even though he won the primary. And this is the problem. Like, sometimes I think we think voters are dumber than they actually are. Voters in America are actually pretty smart. That should be the first thing the party should realize, going back to Akash's point, is if you believe voters were smart, which I do, and they elected Donald Trump twice, then maybe think, like, what are you doing wrong? So voters are smart that you can endorse Mamdani and still not agree with him on every position. Just because you endorse Mamdani doesn't mean that you agree with Mamdani on every single position. And yet we're so afraid in this country. That's the problem with the Democratic Party. In one sentence, one word, it's a lack of courage. It's like they're calculating.
So how do we?
They're pussy.
Yeah, they're pussy.
That's what it is.
They're pussy. Wait, so how can we instill more courage in them? Because it feels like the courageous Democrats are having a lot of success right now. You might not agree with their policies. I'm not saying you, but like the people listening and watching right now, but they are resonating.
And they're making waves, yeah.
So like, how are other Democrats not seeing that and then echoing those sentiments? And furthermore, why don't you echo them courageously without the pejoratives? Like, it seems like the worst thing they say about Mamdani, they're like, he's a communist, he's an anti-Semite, he's a socialist. It's like, well, can you refute some of his ideas? Like, if you have a reason why his new building residential development program is bad for the city, attack that. Let him defend his idea. Because as someone who lives in New York, I'd like to know, why is rent freezing bad? And there are arguments for why it is and why it eventually hurts, the people of that city in the long run. But like, let's attack the arguments that these people are making instead of just throwing these pejoratives around, because then we still are, in my opinion, I think that we're untrusting. Once we're just trying to cast people as certain things, I start to lose a little bit of faith.
Totally agree. But put your own policies out of how you're going to build millions of new homes and how they're going to be either public homes or private homes. Put out your ideas of what you're going to do instead of just labeling someone based on as a communist, which is just not true. But you ask, why is there a lack of courage? And I think it's pretty simple. You got to be willing to lose, to be willing to do something that's meaningful. And you look at one of the reasons Trump advanced one, look at how many years collectively they've been in elective office. Trump, like 5, and Vance has been like 5 years. Now you look at the amount of years that Biden and Harris were collectively in elective office. And the reality is the longer you stay in, people think, okay, I got to just say everything to keep my position. Mamdani didn't think he was going to win that campaign starting out. He just was like, okay, I'm going to have fun with it. And I'm going to say what I want. And if you have that view, like, okay, I'm just going to say that we should release the Epstein files. Who cares? I'm going to partner with Thomas Massie, and I'm going to say no war in Iran. Maybe I'll be right. Maybe I'll be wrong. People will be upset at me. Maybe this is not the best way to get into the cabinet. But you know what? Maybe it resonates, and maybe that it does lead to change. And I just think that's what the Democratic Party needs more of: courage, willingness, actually a willingness to lose a willingness to risk your positions of power.
That's a great way of putting it. There are too many people that it is their goal to be a career politician. And if it is your goal to be a career politician, then you will lose your courage. You can't really go up against the party. You can't really create noise. You can't be rebellious at all. And the people realize that, and we see the inauthenticity in you. And then when you see someone who's willing to buck the system, even if the ideas don't make sense on paper, it is refreshing because it looks like they're not beholden to a system that has let us down.
I trust your intentions too.
Yeah.
But they do get skewered though, because all of the most courageous Democratic politicians we can think of do sit on the periphery of the establishment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the AOCs or
Yes.
Bernie or Roe himself. Like they kind of are at odds with the establishment and they get crucified for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like people sometimes on Twitter will say, "Oh, Ro, you should be Speaker." I can never be Speaker of the House. They wouldn't vote me for Speaker of the House. I've offended too many people. I've broken too many glasses to be Speaker of the House. So you have to be comfortable with saying, okay, I'm going to take certain stances and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may, but this is what I believe. And maybe there's a movement and it makes you president, makes you cabinet. Maybe you never get further, but you can go back and say, like, I tried to make an impact. And the best leaders, in my view, don't just have the courage, then they actually have solutions that resonate. So the problem I have with Trump is, like, he had the rebellion. He diagnosed every problem. Like, yeah, jobs are going offshore, too many wars. I just don't think he thought deeply about the solutions. So, like, how are we actually going to get manufacturing back? How are we actually going to take on the defense establishment? And I think our party shouldn't just be rebellion without purpose. It should be rebellion with a new vision, a fresh vision. And let's have 10, 15 people with that vision, not just anoint. The worst thing the Democratic Party could do is to anoint people for leadership in 2026 or 28. Like, fight. Have more fight within the party.
Speaking of which, how do you feel about Gavin Newsom and the job he's doing out in Cali?
You just want me to comment on every Democrat, huh? People who just
You said you call balls and strikes.
Yeah.
My phone's gonna blow up after this. They're like, you were supposed to talk about the Epstein files. My team will be like, what the hell are you doing? You're doing that. Got the
Shaking it up.
This is the last time I'm gonna be allowed to do one of these things. I'm just joking around. Look, my disappointment, the biggest disappointment I had with Gavin, and I've told him this, was he ran on single payer in getting single payer healthcare in California in 2018. He said, we're gonna do big things. And then he hasn't supported the single payer bill. And then when he had the recall election, there were a lot of insurance companies that funded the anti-recall effort. And so, that was my biggest disappointment. We get the places I agree with him, but that was the place where I have the biggest criticism of him.
We might have to sit down with Gavin and see what's going on, because I think that the idea from, like, a New Yorker, obviously we're not as, like, entrenched in California politics, right? But I think the idea from, like, the outsider is you see him in interviews and he's a really good politician, if you will. He seems authentic, he seems earnest, but then the state is on fire. so it's just like,
Mainly the southern part, his part.
So it's like, we just need to see if, like, what he says in interviews actually ends up being executed. And at the end of the day, if you cannot execute your vision, you cannot do the job well. And I understand there's limiting factors to this, but that's where the art of being a politician comes into play. It's not just convincing the people, it's convincing those other politicians to get on board with your plans. But look, bro, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for your time. We hope to talk to you more about this. Stay alive.
Make your 2028 announcement here.
Stay
first.
alive. Okay?
Come back when it's time.
Totally love my life, just to put it on record. So
okay, I'm sure if you, for whatever reason, are taken out, Peter Thiel's probably got your consciousness somewhere, and he can inject it into another Indian kid, and we'll get another one of you soon.
Reincarnation.
Yes, exactly. Everybody's happy. Anyway, thank you so much, Ro.
This is knowing Rogan, Josh. That takes my level of respect way higher.
I'm going to take you out to some spots, man. Don't even worry. Next time in New York, we're going to take you to some spots. All right, buddy. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.